Hello,
Hi,
Dad.
how are you?
I'm doing well.
Thanks
How
for
are you doing? Glad you could join us.
Yeah, that's good. Good to be here.
Hello, everybody. If you're out there, feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. We love to hear where people are watching us from, and we love to hear what sort of dogs you might have at home with you, perhaps watching with you, or maybe settling down with a chew toy or something. Uh, hopefully you're out there.
Yeah, we got 50 already.
Oh, you can see that? How do you see
Yeah,
that?
of course I can see that.
Oh, yes. Yes,
I
you can.
wouldn't know how to remove it from my screen, Jamie.
Yeah, I see. I see. Yeah, well, we had a lot of fun chatting yesterday, answered some really wonderful questions. Looking forward to some more questions today. And yeah, how was your day, Dad?
You know how my day was. Well, it started off with a sort of an online digital glitch that was a disaster, but I think it's actually we know we've had a big problem for a long time. I think we now know the solution, but we'll see. So there's that. But then now my new email's getting blocked. It's
Yeah,
really difficult to do business when, like December, when I sent out several hundred emails, to promote my book, none of them got delivered. Actually, three of them did.
yeah.
Two to junk, and one person got it but couldn't reply. It said I was blocked.
It's
So
very
then
odd.
I got the new email, and I just looking back, it's blocked twice actually. Once with Zach George, and then once with the Pet Food Express lady.
Yeah. Well, we are joined from viewers from Indiana, Orlando, Santiago, upstate New York, Washington State, Wilmington, Delaware. Got a Airedale Terrier out there and a German Shepherd
Oh,
and
here we go.
and Weiler the PBGV. What's a PBGV?
Oh, Petit Basset Griffon Vendine. Alors,
Of
it
course,
is a French. It's basically a French hairy basset. Beautiful
I can
dogs.
I can see why it's regularly abbreviated
PBGV, yeah.
PBGV. All right, well, we are ready for our first question. If I think I saw a question out there. Um, Joe writes, 4 months ago, we adopted a German/Dutch Shepherd, now 15 months old, who is now guarding me. If my wife comes too close to me, the dog bares her teeth and growls. Any suggestions?
Um, yes. Um, since in situations like this, your wife isn't the one to explain to the dog you don't like it, you have to be. So I would think, how can we explain this? I would say, Rover, sit, shush. So they would be the two commands I'd really focus on teaching to eliminate the problem. So your dog's easier to control. I would have your wife do all the hand feeding, so all the feeding, mostly by hand from the palm of her hand. And once she feels comfortable close to the dog, then she backs up as she does it. Come here, sit, treat. Come here, sit, treat. Just feeding basic kibble. And just taking one step back, then two steps back. There is no quicker way to get a dog to bond to a person when, for whatever reason, which we will never know, they aren't comfortable around them. But always think to communicate your concerns to the dog in words, and words that you have taught the dog what they mean by lure reward training, obviously.
Wow, Dad, that was very succinct and to the
Yeah,
point.
I'm trying.
I love it. All
I
right,
mean, my
Rolly.
brain sort of sorts through like 100 things I should say, and what are the top three, or in this case, the top two.
Yep. Come sit treat
I
times
mean,
100.
it's not an
Times a
in-depth
thousand.
answer, but yeah.
All right, Rolly says, my question. In your experience, are there cases where a dog is so terrified of a trigger that you deem it inhumane to use counter conditioning and instead just revert to management? I feel like my first reaction there would be that, the goal with counter conditioning is often calibrating the trigger to be a level that's not so overwhelming and terrifying as to be certainly inhumane. So, there are some situations that might be so scary for the dog that it won't be productive. But if you can make the trigger farther away or less intense in some way, you can hopefully find a place where you can do counter conditioning. But what do you think, Dad?
Well, yeah, it all depends what we mean by counter conditioning. It has, like academic definitions and then training definitions. And so, what are you doing in counter conditioning? Why would that be stressful? So, I would say what we would be better doing.
I'm pretty sure Rolly, and he could clarify. I'm pretty sure the idea is classical conditioning. It's really just
Yeah, classical conditioning is what we want to do.
I think classical
where
conditioning against something is
Yeah.
how a lot of people interpret it.
So you're associating the scary trigger with something pleasant, and the easiest thing to use is food. Again, kibble from his regular diet. You're basically hand feeding a dog an entire meal around these triggers, whether they be people, other dogs, or stuff in the environment like large trucks, air brakes, and things like that. So you always try your best, even when you're classically conditioning, to progressively desensitize. So a way to describe that would be shaping the classical conditioning process. So you would expose the dog to very low levels of the stimulus first. Like if it's, say, were a Sheltie or a Border Collie scared of noises, you would play your sound tapes at 5 decibels, then up to 10, then 15, then 20, and then you can begin to hear it until eventually you can play them at 100 decibels. Generally, it's considered a bad thing to flood the dog, which is to put it in a situation where the stimulus is at a high level and it can't get away from it. But after COVID, I've actually tried this a few times because I had dogs which were so scared of their own shadow, the environment themselves, their reflection in the mirror, let alone other people, people and other dogs. And I would have said 4, 5, 6 years ago, prior to COVID, well, you can classically condition these dogs, but they'll never be what they could have been. And I think I still mean that, but I have since learned in one session, you can change the dog's behavior enormously. So what I did, the first dog I tried it on, the dog was afraid of its own shadow. And I was in Laguna Beach, right in the middle of COVID. And I thought, I'm going to take him out to the walk on the edge of the cliff. And I sat there. I had a big bag of his entire meal that evening, just kibble. I let him hide under the bench. And I was there for about, I would say, 2.5 hours. And I would say about 3, 4, maybe 500 people walked by. Some of them stopped. And I explained, please don't approach. He's so scared. He may snap, and then we're going backwards. I'm lying, of course, but whatever. But some people who stuck around, I said, oh, could you toss him treats and so on. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I went there with one dog. I came back with another one. I came back with a dog that was now, he could focus on me and he could focus on my praise. And he wasn't like blowing me off like I wasn't even on the same planet. So you usually want to do it gently if you can. So like we mentioned the other day, dog park, start 100 yards away outside. And when you can do, and have a picnic, have a tarpaulin or blanket, and you've got its sandwiches or, and after 10 minutes when the dog's settled, move 10 yards closer. And the logical endpoint of that is eventually for 3 days in a row, you're having a picnic outside of the fence of the dog park. And at that point, then I would consider going inside first through the first double date and waiting there for a while. So you want to reduce the stimulus to a teeny stimulus, the same quality of stimulus, but less intense. And then, no, the progressive desensitization is, and even if it is stressful, so things like join up in horses, they have a horse in a circular corral with a person and it's scared of people. So the trainer stands there. Well, the horse wants to get away, but can't. So he runs in circles. And it's stressful. It's very stressful for the horse. But eventually he gives up the gambit. And if the trainer turns around and walks away, the horse joins up and comes in and lowers his head to signal, okay, okay, I want to be your friend. So now the horse has one human friend in the world. Now, when they started having this on, TV, horse whisperers and such, they got a lot of flack saying this is stressful. It is stressful, but it's not as stressful as living with people when nothing's done. What is inhumane here is the people who foaled this horse and did nothing in the first 2 days and then live with the problem without doing any progressive desensitization or classical conditioning. It's not the trainer's fault. The trainer came out to cure the problem. Was it stressful? Yes. Like when Jamie made me go down this high-powered water slide. I thought I was going to die. But
Well, I think
when I got to the bottom, I thought I want to do that again. And the same with the horse. He now has one human friend. Soon he'll have two, then three. And so the point is, anything new in life is stressful, as you can see from little, say, cortisol spikes in puppies and kittens, if they smell something that's novel and so on and so on. But if we don't expose them early in life, then when they meet the same, usually benign or innocuous stimulus as an adult, they explode and their adrenals empty. I mean, they totally lose it. And so we got to look at the big picture that you can say, oh, this training's stressful. Yeah, but what about no training? That's more stressful for the rest of the animal's life. And
yeah.
so, and also I say to these people, well, what are you going to do then? I don't see you training the dog or the horse. Let's get this problem resolved or
Well,
much better today.
right. The question was whether you've ever been in a situation where you think management alone is the answer. And no, if there's fear, you want to resolve the fear so the dog doesn't deal with fear every day. No one wants chronic fear in their life. So
Yeah, I mean, there's some obvious management things I would do, like closing doors, your front
yeah.
door, for example. Um,
FYI, in this case, the trigger is large mowers at the park. And
oh, then,
Rolly
yeah,
says that at
of
any
course.
distance, their cattle dog goes berserk. But
Yeah. And so we sit down, but we choose where we sit because the mower's going back and forth or round and round.
right,
And you're giving the dog a running commentary. And you basically have to give two binomial feedbacks at the same time. So is the stimulus present? Yes or no, and to what extent? So that would be an analog, like, and binary feedback. But also, is the dog reacting or not? So if you put those out, and I don't want to say it, a quadrant, you'll see you've got 4 types of feedback, but for each one also they have to be analog. So the dog's not reacting. Well, how well behaved is he? Good boy. The stimulus is present, but it's a baby stimulus. Good dog. Or it's a huge stimulus. What a boy. Oh, you're my good boy. You get it? So this is where binary feedback, especially if you're using punishment versus reward or punishment versus nothing or reward versus nothing, is so simplistic and ineffective. You have to use an analog feedback where each piece of feedback is totally different from the previous one because the dog's behavior is continually changing.
so go to the dog park, find a place where you can be as far as possible from the mowers, bring your dog's dinner, and settle in. And you can come back away from the dog park with your dog substantially more confident and less afraid of mowers.
And I'll actually give you one really good tip there. What I said earlier, to then get 10 yards close to the dog park, then another 10 yards. No, you don't want to always be heading towards the scary trigger. When you get to a point where it's barely tolerable, walk way back. Why? Hey, dog's got that. It's easy now, but he can still hear the mower. And then you go forward just past the distance you were last time, a little closer, then come back again.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Janine says, walking on leash in forest, my dog lies in the play stalking position when another dog is approaching. What should I do in that instant to get him to learn not to? I am working on this at home also. So this is a classic consideration when dealing with dog-dog reactivity is body language. Dogs communicate with their body language and where they're looking. So, to the extent that you can control your own dog's body language and your own dog's attention, you can really interrupt reactivity. So you may not be able to control the other dogs, but you should be able to get your dog to come to you, sit, stay, and watch you. And
Well,
if you
your
can do
dog,
that, then your dog's not in the stalking position.
but even being in the stalking position, you say it yourself, play stalking. It's exactly what your dog's doing. It is a friendly appeasement gesture, as well as being a precursor to running after something, jumping on it, killing it, and eating it. And so in this case, I mean, we see it all the time in the dog park. And when a dog goes into the play stalking position, watch the other dog. Often they do the same. And they look at each other. And then one dog gives a little, like a butt bobble. And the other dog replies with the butt bobble. And then they charge at each other. Or one dog runs off and the other one follows it. So with the chasing, the question is it like back and forth? Do we have one dog chasing another dog and then it stops and the other dog chases the one dog? And so this is all normal, totally normal dog play behavior. Now, what we do know is what's going to happen after the stalking position. Your dog is going to explode, most likely, towards the other dog. So if that's what you don't want, I would follow Jamie's instruction and say, hey, Rover, sit. Good dog, break the stalking position. Rover down. Good dog, Rover come. Or if it's a dire emergency that you don't even like the other dog and that one looks dangerous, then I would say, Rover, sit. I would do the recall myself, run up to the dog, stand beside it, put it on leash, and talk it through a sit stay, looking at me so it's not eyeballing the other dog.
All right, next question.
I'm out of, when I try to finish quickly, I'm out of breath because I do it all with one breath. And then when I'm gasping for the air, that's the signal that Jamie wants me to stop now.
There's plenty of air, Dad. There's no need to hoard it. Dana says, my Pomeranian barks at, lunges at, and bites other family members when they come home. He goes from 0 to 100 in 1 second and is not redirectable. How can I get him to stop this? Well, obviously, this is a big problem. You don't want your dog to be biting your family members when they come home. And anytime biting's part of the equation, that's always the first issue. So I'd say the first step is making sure that your Pomeranian really loves the other members of your family and enjoys their presence. And a great way to do that, like we were talking about with the growling at the wife, is simply hand feeding. I would say, each family member should take turns hand feeding the dog. Come, sit, treat, come, sit, treat, come, sit, treat, probably, 100, 200 reps. The dog's going to feel a lot better towards these people after that simple exercise. And then you can start doing setups for the actual coming home behavior. But of course, getting the emotional response to be the right one is the starting point. But what do you think, Dad?
Provided that the biting is not, breaking the skin.
Very good point.
This is very normal dog-dog greeting behavior. It's what they do. When they haven't seen each other for a while, they run up to each other, jump on each other, and start biting away. And there's a very good reason for this that, for me, was crystallized, I don't know whether I can say this online, when watching hyenas. When hyenas come together, so it's an animal that they live separately, come together to hunt, they have very strong jaws. And as some of you probably know, the females look exactly like males externally. I think, just Google it, okay? What do they do when they come together? They start laughing. They all get erections, and then they take the other dog's erection in their jaws. Now, if that weren't proof of good bite inhibition, I don't know what is. And so, to a lesser extent, when dogs come together and take another dog's paw or ears or scruff or, in its jaws, what it's communicating is, I not only am friendly and want to play, but I have bite inhibition. However, totally unacceptable when directed at humans, especially if you don't know them. If the dog does it to a stranger on the street and that stranger says, that dog bit me, this is no longer a behavior problem, it's a legal problem. And now you have no recourse. Your dog is now legally a biter. because they just look at what the dog did. They don't even consider what's the dog's intent. Is he friendly or not? Whereas I always quantify how friendly the dog is by counting all of these friendly gestures, bent elbows, the tongue coming out, and the weight shifting and stuff. So I would, number one, when you're hand feeding, as Jamie says, we use that to teach the dog to sit. Come sit, come sit, come sit. As I said previously, the quickest way to get a dog to bond to you, but also the quickest way to get an active dog to go motionless and sit. So the solution is, when visitors come home, they tell the dog to sit. But it won't work because the dog's brain's on a different planet. You see, this is what people have to learn. The solutions are simple. If your dog's jumping up or molesting you or chasing the cat, just tell him to sit. But he won't in some situations because he's so excited. So repeat them. Every time someone comes home, okay, it's going to be a nightmare. But you've been doing this for years, right? So the advice I'm giving you is no worse than what you've been doing every day, therefore unintentionally encouraging the problem by greeting the dog like another dog would greet him and allowing him to greet you like another dog. So you weather the first greeting, but it's different. You're going to get the dog to sit. And when it sits, you hook your thumb in its collar so it can't jump up now, and you can keep it still, and you offer a food reward, another one, another one, another one, another one, say 10. I want you to make a statement, and the dog goes, wow, you mean just because I sat? Then you leave, put your bag down, go straight out the back door, come round, you come home again. You will find the dog will sit quicker with fewer commands. When you've repeated this 5 to 6 times, most dogs are picture perfect. I've known some dogs, as soon as you come through the door, they automatically sit. Treats, please. And I would also do a setup, a beer and pizza party with all your close friends who are frequent visitors, so they don't have to suffer this when they come to your house with your out-of-control dog. And we just treat the dog how to greet people in a mannerly fashion in terms of what we consider good manners, not good dog manners, but good manners for greeting a human.
All right. Sounds good. Valerie says, how do you redirect a dog when it is so stressed to engage with a toy or take a treat?
Well, this is, I tell all veterinarians, groomers, animal control, if you have to put your hands on a dog, or you even want to train him off leash, the first thing you do is offer him a treat. So if the dog approaches and takes the treat, it's cool. If the dog doesn't approach, then something's wrong. If he doesn't take a treat from you, something's really wrong. So what you do is, if you're a trainer, say, the dog refuses a treat from you, you give it to the owner and say, could you offer him the treat? No, he doesn't accept it from the owner. So I think, wow, then it's obviously this scenario which is stressing the dog. So now the whole training session stops and we go like we did the other day, Jamie. We were going to film, I think, training a dog to do something, but he wasn't approaching me quickly. He was reticent to take treats. So now I'm going to deal with his fear. His fear and lack of confidence is the underlying problem we must address. However, what about this one? You offer a dog a food reward, a treat, and a tasty treat. I don't just mean a bit of kibble in this sense. He refuses it. You give it to the owner. He takes it right away. What's the dog scared of? You. Yeah. So now you definitely don't put your hands on this dog in training. You'll be stressing it too much. So as soon as the dog doesn't readily approach and doesn't readily take a treat, that is a massive temperament test that says that dog ain't feeling too good about this situation and or about you. So that's all you deal with. So I would sit in a chair, toss treats over the dog's head, and we would do this treat and retreat thing, which is on, I think, well, all our websites, just Google it, Dog Star Daily, Dunbar Academy. And so what you do is you don't lure the dog close. What exactly are you doing up here? Don't lure the dog close to you because you're always luring him into like danger, what he's scared of. So instead, you toss a bit of kibble over the dog's head. So the kibble is to lure the dog to retreat. When he approaches, you toss down 3 treats. And we do that over and over. So he stretches the distance for kibble, but approaches to get 3 treats. With most dogs, not even 10, 15 minutes, you'll find the dog's coming very close until he takes a treat by your hand. Now, if you are dealing with a case, so you don't know this dog, I would hold your hand and maybe have gloves on it down by your side, and you turn your side to the dog. You don't want to turn your back because you don't know what's going on, but you don't want to look at it at the front because you don't want to be bitten on the front and you're threatening it if you just look at it. So I go side on like this, and the treat's down by my side. And when he's taking the treat, I move away, and then I bring it so close the dog's head has to touch my leg to take the treat. And then I hand feed it while the dog's leaning against me. And then I touch the collar and change from kibble to treat, 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 treat. Let go of the collar. And I touch the collar, treat, 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 treat. Because the collar, of course, is the number one most common subliminal bite stimulus. And so it's important that we, I'm usually pretty patient dealing with people when I explain these things or writing my book. Wow, I've never been more patient in my life. At times I wanted to scream about stuff, but I didn't. But there's one thing owners can say that just gets me so annoyed when they say something like, oh, he takes a while to warm to strangers. He's a little bit dodgy around this food bowl. He's not overly fond of children. They know that. They know the dog is scared of strangers, children, and people around his food bowl, yet they do nothing about it. I'm sorry. Come on, let's solve this right away. I now realize they didn't DP the dog before this, so you're on your own for the next question, Jamie.
All right.
Come on then, Billy.
Sounds good. What's the next question? All right, Wendy. My dog, 5-year-old border collie. She is reactive due to being fearful. While in the house, she will at times redirect onto my other dog. What's the best way to handle her when she does redirect? It's a little hard to answer this. When you say redirect onto my other dog, what do you mean? I assume you're talking about kind of barking or lunging, something like that. Sounds like whatever it is, it's something you don't like. Usually when dogs are living together, as long as they have good bite inhibition, they're usually able to kind of sort things out themselves. Dogs that live together usually come to some understandings. And sometimes they'll be barking at each other, sometimes they'll be snapping, but that's actually pretty normal dog communication. It doesn't mean that that is just how you should let it be. Ideally, you should be able to control both or either dog at any time so that you can, if you think things are getting out of control, tell them, go to your bed, settle down, chill out. This is not what we are doing right now. Of course, with dogs fighting, and especially dogs fighting in your house, it is worth considering whether the dogs are enjoying it. A lot of dog play can look like fighting. One easy way to check is to restrain one of the dogs, whichever dog you're most worried is the victim or the target. Restrain the other dog, the dog you're concerned is the aggressor, and see what the victim does. A lot of times that dog will actually approach the dog that you're worried is doing the bullying. And if that's the case, it's a good sign that, it's actually a consensual behavior that they're engaging in. However, if, you restrain one dog and the other dog uses that as an opportunity to run away, then yeah, you probably should try and make some more space in your household and your dog's daily schedule for them to have time apart. And you should work on training the dog that is, aggressing to or pursuing the other dog, maybe not, it's not even aggression. You should work on redirecting them to a behavior that is appropriate, whether that's come to you and sit, or that's go to your bed and settle down. I don't know, Dad. Did you catch what the question was? Do you have anything
Yes,
to
there are.
add?
Could you put it up again? There are a couple of words in it. I was going to. Never mind. Yeah, I remember now that when dogs are behaving in a way that it just makes you feel uncomfortable, um, most of us ascribe a reason to it. Oh, it's fear-based or it's predatory or what have you. We will never know what a dog's motives are, what it's thinking, any more than you know what your spouse is thinking, you know? However, there are ways, as Jamie explained, to ask questions of the dog. How are you feeling about this? The bully test. And we use it a lot in puppy class because you're teaching an off-leash puppy class and say one dog is continually bullying another. I don't say anything. I just take hold of the bully and I wait for the other dog to run up and say, hey, what are you doing? You let go of my friend. We were playing there. And then I explain it to people. And I say, if ever you are concerned, anything's wrong, then restrain one of the dogs. So the other one has consent. You test, it's consent. This is why we do all our training off leash at Sirius. Every second, I want to check the dog is cool with this. I don't like putting dogs on leash to train them because they don't have an option to leave the training. And for whatever reason, it could be that there's much better things going on there, like squirrels and rabbits, or that the dog just doesn't like you or doesn't like training. So I'm a big believer in trying to establish the dog's point of view. And that's where the bully test is very powerful. And a lot of people are really relieved when they see it, even other owners in class think, oh, that's good. I felt so sorry for the dog running away. Oh, look, now he's chasing the bully. No, they're playing a game. And what I found, in the past 50 years, starting with 10 years of research on dog social behavior, dog sexual behavior, if you leave dogs to it and they live in groups, you can barely see a single dog fight. You may see some little squabbles over a fallen leaf or a bone or a sunny spot, but a full contact dogfight lasting more than 3 seconds, they're so rare. Like our top dog, for 9 years, he was the top dog. He was involved in one fight. It was less than 1 second long. Because if you're a top dog, you don't need to prove anything. You're the top dog. But the top bitch thought otherwise. And it was a 1 second rebuke. It never did it again. So then they live in pack harmony. The notion of the dominance hierarchy, it doesn't exist. The whole point of inequalities growing up, puppies of different size, especially if they're 2 weeks or 3 weeks apart, and then puppies versus adolescents, no contest, puppies versus adult, no contest. The whole point of establishing just a rank order, a clear-cut hierarchy, is to prevent the need for fighting. Imagine if you had, I love human analogies. So this big corporation, right? The top 3 executives have the name where they can park. And then there's 3 parking spots for lower level management. Well, there's 20 of them and 3 spaces. I mean, can you imagine them coming in the morning, getting there earlier, going into one spot, crashing their cars? The whole point is some things like possession of a bone. There's no contest, unless you're a bitch, of course, then they question everything. That totally is a different hierarchy than the boring old linear male hierarchy set in stone and never changes, throughout life. Are you chewing on the electrical cord? I think you're cutting off my power supply. Oh my God, he did. Look at that. He bit through my power supply.
Very good, Dad.
That is not good. Hey, I'm sorry. You take the next question, Jamie.
Okay. All right, Jane just took in a 15-month Sheltie. Also, I would like to point out that the dog that living with Ian right now is not his dog. He's taking care of this dog for a few weeks to try and get it up and running for other people. So he's been doing a lot of onboarding with this dog, who's got a lot of new skills to learn. All right, Jane says just took in a 15-month Sheltie. Owner deceased. Lived in condo and we think was never out of the condo. Barks incessantly when playing with my other dog. They play silently. Hints to teach it quiet play. Yeah, so we actually did a video about this pretty recently on our YouTube channel. the Dunbar Academy YouTube channel about managing dog play and uh, and really managing barking, because the incessant barking is often the one thing that drives everybody insane. And there's a number of things that you can do to reduce barking. One of the biggest things you can do is to simply notice when dogs are quiet and praise them for being quiet. A very similar and equally valuable thing is to notice whenever a dog stops barking and to praise them for stopping barking, because like most behaviors, all barking episodes come to an end. And every time a barking episode comes to an end, it's a moment that's worth reinforcing. And too many people take that completely for granted. Now, there's also it's also quite easy to lure a dog to stop barking. You can use a food treat and put in front of the dog's nose, and especially if it's a particularly smelly food treat, the dog's going to sniff it. And if the dog sniffs it, they'll stop barking. And if the dog stops barking, then you can reinforce it for stopping barking. However, what you don't want to do is give that food treat immediately. You want to hold on to that food treat, because the longer you hold it, the longer your dog's going to be sniffing and the longer the dog's going to be quiet. And you might, if you're using a particularly high value food treat that you needed to get the dog's attention, get them to sniff, you maybe don't even need to give them that treat right away. You could give them a piece of kibble, or you could give them some praise or something. You want to break the connection between offering a piece of food and your dog thinking they're always going to get it. There's a huge value in showing your dog a really tasty, smelly treat and having them sniff it, but they don't get it right away. Now you got that dog's mind thinking, how am I going to get this treat out of this person? And they're focusing on you and they're paying attention to you. And you can, at some point, for sure, give them that tasty treat. And that's going to get them thinking. That's going to get them motivated way more than if it's just, here's a treat, take it. Here's a treat, take it. That's a simple game. That doesn't require any thought out of the dog. So, yeah, you want to teach the dog woof and shush on cue so that you can tell it what you want, and there's a chance that it will actually listen. If you can find another trigger that gets the dog to bark besides playing with your dog, that's probably smart to start with a different trigger, because playing with your dog may get this dog to bark, but it's not a trigger that you can easily control. So it makes it a little harder to teach woof and shush on cue. But if your dog barks in response to a doorbell, or in yesterday's Q&A, the TV with animals on it, that's really easy to teach a dog woof and shush, because you can control the trigger. So you can lure the dog into barking, and then it's easy to lure the dog into not barking. But anything you wanted to add, Dad?
Yeah, I would take what you said there and as a colossal generalization. People feed much too much food as a reward and give it too quickly. And so, it's like it sits, treat. It's like, what are you doing? I say, well, he sat. Yeah, but why not ask a little more for less? So the whole point, when you look at lure reward training, it is a comprehensive training program like none other. So when you read other reward training techniques, they're like shaping. We progressively refine the criteria, but we don't do much in terms of phasing out the clicker and the food to make sure we end up, with a dog that responds when you don't have food on you. And the way to do that is, instead of giving the dog a treat the moment he sits, you offer him the treat or you tease him with it. The longer you hold on to the treat, the longer the sit stay will eventually be reinforced when you actually give the treat. So we actually, in lure reward training, we quantify, what is the response reward ratio? How many responses or how many seconds of response can we get per treat? And that should be radically improving for every session, but you won't know that unless you count them. The other thing is, Jamie's gone into what I consider barking when playing or doing anything, barking 201, teach the dog to speak and shush on cue. But I like, there's two sort of scenarios for training a dog, the best possible training scenario. And I would say, well, I'd pre-train the dog to speak and shush on cue. So when he's playing, he now understands what I mean when I say shush. Also, though, I like to train in the worst possible training scenario. I mean, I revel in this, especially with hyperactivity, silliness, and what have you. And just say, right, from now on, your dog is not allowed to bark when playing, period. And you're going to stop him. How? I don't care how. You could say shush, he doesn't understand it, but if you do, he'll quickly learn. It's going to go like this. Woof, woof, woof. I say, hey, shush, shush. I may be taken by the collar. Now shush. Yeah, good dog. That's right, good dog. Now go play. Woof, I said shush. I got him by the collar again. All you've got to do is to persevere. If the dog woofs, you will follow up by saying shush. And I like taking the collar. If you've done pre-collar training, I don't want the dog resenting you grabbing his collar. So we do collar, grab, treat, so on. I do that to calm him down so I can scratch him on the chest. But most people they think I'm weird when they bring their dogs round and they're playing and one dog's barking, and I don't allow it. And I've been subbing for puppy classes recently, and in 2 classes we had barking dogs. Well, I'm sorry, not when Ian's there. And it only took me like 5 minutes with each one. I said, "Do you mind if I teach your dog not to bark when he's playing?" But people just don't think of doing that. You would think of telling children to keep the noise down or turn the TV down. So
Yeah.
it's just the same thing.
I think though, Dad, when you say you can just decide that you're not going to let the dogs bark while they're playing, and I don't care how you do it, you're just going to make it happen. I think you do care
Oh,
for a
yeah.
couple reasons. I think
Non-aversively. Yeah.
well, I think there's a non-aversive issue, and I think that for a lot of people, their gut reaction in terms of how to get a dog to stop doing something is to be nasty to it. And
Ah,
to be
yeah.
clear, you don't need to be nasty, and we don't want you to do that. But the other thing is, unfortunately, a lot of times people are trying to get dogs to stop doing something. Their interventions actually lure the dog to do it more. So, for
Oh, yeah.
example, a person might yell at their dog to stop barking, and that would actually lure the dog to bark more. And so I think you sometimes take for granted how much you know about how to modify a dog's behavior and how to avoid the common pitfalls that a lot of, I think, our viewers would fall into if they were just given the assignment, make this dog stop barking. I think a lot of people would, without clear direction, go the wrong way and
No,
make the
yeah, so
problem
I
worse.
can give some very clear rules. If a dog is irking you in any way, think what specifically is upsetting you. In this case, making noise. Okay, now think of a single word that would communicate to the dog 2 pieces of information. Please stop what you're doing. Do this instead. So for barking, we could say, find your Kong. Why? As soon as he's got the Kong in his mouth, well, it's some dogs still can bark, but not as explosively. Or the obvious one is shush. And so let's teach the dog to shush on cue. We do need some prior training. But no, when you're interacting with the dog, and I'm a very impatient person, and I do have buttons that can be pushed. And I always remind myself when I'm working with a dog, I visualize it as a canary. Do I really want to jerk this dog or give it an alpha rollover? I visualize it as a cheetah or a grizzly bear, both, where I've done a considerable amount of some training and some watching. I'm not going to give an alpha rollover to a grizzly bear, or I consider it as a toddler. And I try to get my image as a kindergarten teacher or grandpa. And I would know more than I just don't want to shout. And when
Yeah.
I do, I feel like a total failure because, as Jamie says, why don't you follow your own instructions, Dad?
I think that's really wonderful advice, though, about getting in the right frame of mind by, thinking of the dog as a toddler or a grizzly bear or a little, tiny canary. That's wonderful advice. I think we should memify that one for sure.
Well, we're very specious about abuse, and the animals that get tremendously physically abused would be number 2, dogs, number 3, horses, number 4, elephants, and number 1, of course, people, especially children. And that's what all this is about. I hope people know all this stuff about the oodles of non-aversive techniques for dealing with the misbehavior, non-compliance. Yeah, it's going to help you out with your dog, which will make you feel better about yourself and certainly improve the relationship. But it's basically about getting people to think, yeah, there's another way with people, like listening to what they say, number 1, before you have a knee-jerk response with a sentence that begins with the word I. And so it's all about people. And
All right. Oh, yep.
Nope.
What's the next question?
Oh, yeah.
Holly says, my dog gets very excited and vocal for something we do daily, like ride a bike. He is so loud until we get moving. How can I guide him to refocus that vocal energy in another way? So my guess is you posted this question before we gave all this excellent advice about managing barking, because all that wonderful barking advice would apply here. The
But
big thing that
I would
stands
reply
out
to this
from
because I think the way people perceive answers is specific to their situation. So for them, barking at another dog is very different from barking because I'm on a bike. The same principle applies, which is don't get on the frigging bike if your dog's barking. What I would do is I'd put the bike back on the rack and say, all right, bark away, I'm going inside, and leave the dog in the garage. But what it means is, as we've said, both Jamie and I, many times, you have to troubleshoot this problem. And today, I'm sorry, you may be very late and very short for your bike ride. You will maybe get one, but maybe not. And what you're going to do is get out the bike and put it away, but you're training the dog at the same time. You see, you're now not on a hurry to get on the bike, like people at the front door aren't in a hurry to open the front door because they know it's a setup. They invited these people round. And then you're going to get the bike down and you're going to straddle it. And then you're going to put it back, all the time praising the dog with that word under your belt, shush. And I would teach that the way Jamie said. Lure, reward, train, speak on cue, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then lure, reward, train, shush, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the dog knows what you want it to do, and what you're looking for is the dog taking his breath for a quarter of a second to get oxygen for more barks. You're looking for this tiny, I was actually looking at a video on the Sirius website today about me teaching off, and the dog's slobbering on my hand for the longest of times, and he pulls his nose away for a nanosecond. Good dog. And I give him the treat. And I do it again. Those first 3, 4, 6 baby steps are critical because people say, oh, my dog barks all the time. No, he doesn't. I designed a bark activity counter that, who was it? Premier Pet Products made. So I would look at a printout of how many times did the dog bark in a day and when. And they don't bark all the time. It's episodic. Yeah, that episode may be 15 minutes, but it is 15 minutes. It starts and it stops. And you're looking for those short periods when it's not barking. And you could encourage them by doing silly things like going, meow, and they stop barking. And then you say, there's a good dog, good dog. Okay, come here and start feeding the food rewards. So you've got to troubleshoot it. When you have these extremely overpowering reactions where the dog is so worked up, and the sad thing is sometimes so excited because they're doing something with you and or greeting you when you come home. And then we used to do horrible things to them, grab their front paws, squeeze them, stamp on their hind feet, slap them with rolled up newspaper, squirt them with lemon juice vinegar or alpha rollover, or shock them because your dog is happy to see you or happy that you're going out on a bike ride. No, we certainly wouldn't be aversive there at all. We need to be intelligent and to communicate clearly to the dog what we want in single words that it understands. and is motivated to follow because we have trained it in a similar situation beforehand. Like when you come back from your bike ride, why not get the bike down a few times then? Mix up all the stimuli for going out and returning.
All right. What's okay? Nancy D. Any non-medication suggestions as to how to help a senior dog accept the handling of a veterinarian?
Oh, God,
Yeah, I
me.
mean, this is
Why
oh,
would you even think of a medication? This is what gets me. It wouldn't even occur to me. I can't think of a problem where I would medicate apart from if I had to anesthetize the dog to cut its abdomen open. But otherwise, it's too silly. And to me, show me any research that show that these medications actually work. And the ones where you do get a little tiny wee statistical effect, it's so non-significant. And it takes about 6 months for that to happen. And it's not like these drugs are cheap. No, what you do is, Jamie's given you all the instructions. From now on, no food bowl. You hand feed every day. Yes, you. Why? Because the dog likes you. And then every day you bring round someone different to hand feed the dog. But there's going to be no medical examination. But think about it. You see, the notion of examination, and restraint is really no different than hugging and petting, apart from the dog's perception of the person. So you do all the exercises with yourself, but going through the whole, 13 most common subliminal bite stimuli, 1 through 13, with food rewards for each, and then you have another person do it. And the order of the people is women first, because they get it right from the outset, then girls. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you come next to last, especially if you're an old guy. So then boys before men, handling the dog, because that's the order of how much dogs don't like men or boys, and they know the game we're playing because the owner's done it. Many women have done it. Many girls have done it. So the old handling game, they know, and we count it out when we're in class. It's like, take the collar, give a treat. Right ear treat, left ear treat. Front paw treat, other paw treat. Back paw treat. There, ghoulies, 2 treats for those. Hug the dog treat, and look in his eyes treat. I think that's the first 7. Okay, so we got to start with the basics. And it's a Malinois. I just read that. The dog was going to be even trickier to handle as a young adolescent because they're so active. It's not like you're handling a Bernese or a Newfie, like, duh, you want to handle me now? I'll just go to sleep while you're doing it. It is a breed that not only needs these handling exercises, but needs hyper mega handling exercises, just getting you back to the norm of what a normal dog would be like. So there's easy to handle breeds and very difficult to handle breeds. And then we introduce it, like when we took Dune to his optician, what's it called? Ophthalmic veterinarian. He'd scratched his cornea. He did it twice. This vet impressed me so friggin' much because what he's going to do is put stuff in the dog's eye and then scrape its eyeball with a razor blade. Yeah, I mean, it will. I cringe when I think about it. And he said, Dune, this is a little whatever it was, the thing where you look in the dog's eye. I mean, how many people say don't stare in the dog's eyes? And this guy's going to go, oh, sort of thing like that. And he let Dune sniff it. And what surprised you was every bit of his tools. My brain's gone blank. He would let the dog sniff. And how long did Dune sniff? That's what, like, wow. Here we just come up to the dog with something in our hand. Here they get spooked. It really, I thought, wow, I never thought of doing that. And what you have to think of that, he's not I wouldn't say an old Malinois, but he's getting up to welcome his sunset years. And he could easily, being a Malinois, be around for another 6 years, 7 years, easily, with some good diet and regular walks and stuff. Let's make his golden years then okay at the vet. And ask your vet, hey, could I just bring him in and sit in the waiting room and hand feed him food and have some of your staff just come in and give him bits of food? And if the vet says no, change your vet. I'm sorry. You are the customer, you're the consumer. And if they aren't interested in helping to make your dog feel comfortable in their clinic, find someone who does. Find a vet that will come to your home. That will be a burgeoning new industry again. We started with that. Now we're going back to it. So it really is important that I don't know how to explain it to people. It's like when your dog is, because we always explain it so euphemistically, like he doesn't like the vet. No, he hates the vet. He's so scared in the vet. He doesn't know what to do. Or strangers, yet you keep walking him and he has to meet strangers every day. Your dog is hurting inside. He's screaming inside, and bless him for not reacting in a way that all dogs could. So let's really help him out and do this. And of course, what gets me, my whole aim in my entire career is, come on, I mean, why are we always concentrating on fear-free and anxiety, this and that? Why don't we just prevent it from puppyhood? This could all be prevented from ever happening prior to 8 weeks of age. It's that simple with horses prior to 2 days of age. Why aren't we doing this? So many dogs, and nearly every horse I know is a little flighty around people it doesn't know. It's too silly for words. And this is where I think the various fancies, the dog fancy and the horse fancy, they are really double-crossing their horses and dogs by not telling new horse owners and new dog owners how to prevent this ever from happening. There is no bigger variable, regardless of breed or breeding. So the worst breed you could ever think of for you and the worst breeding kennel, the worst genes, doesn't matter. The biggest variable that influences its behavior and temperament as an adult is whether or not it was socialized and handled prior to 8 weeks of age.
All right.
How many times do I have to say it, Jamie, before people spread the word? Like, we have this free pup book program that says all this, and all people have to do in the dog world is hand out a bit.ly link, which is, what is it? Dunbar.info/free pup books. Now, if you're in a non-US country, you may have to put https:// in front of it, because they don't seem to recognize bit.ly links. But then what people get is free books. 3 free books to download and learn all this stuff. And not only that, I clearly rank what is important and what is urgent. No talking around the bush, beating around the bush, no, waffling, no Ian going on and on. It says, here's the deal. If you don't socialize this dog, his life will be different. And so will yours. You see the impact it has on owners if you can't walk a dog. What a horrible thing. Or I know some dogs the owners can't even hug. It's like, what's the point of having a spouse if you can't hug them once in a while? It's crazy. It really is. We got to change the world. We got to do it quickly, because I'm fed up of doing this now. I've been doing it since 1971 actively.
All right.
Sorry. So why don't you tell us how you really feel, Ian?
Unfortunately, we're almost out of time, but I think
we are. There's
one more question. But we will be back again tomorrow and the next day. We got 2 more Q&As after this. Heidi says, a Welsh Terrier doesn't care about food or affection. City issues redirecting on anyone holding leash if he can't get to dog or human. Has bitten me, other people, drawn blood, aggression in elevator. I don't think we're going to end on this.
I'll take this really quickly, Jamie. Yeah. Look, let's stop thinking we know why. Redirecting? Why is it redirecting on someone? What's that person doing that the dog has to redirect? Just say the dog is biting you. He's biting other people and it's breaking the skin. and let's resolve this right away. Starting by no food bowl. You hand feed the dog. We've been through this. Other women hand feed the dog. Then invite a man round to hand feed the dog. Then other men, and so on. So come sit, food reward. Come sit, reward. Come sit, reward. Over and over and over and over again. Then we would get to the handling exercises. Let's give this dog confidence around unfamiliar people now. Why? Well, we can't do it when he's 8 weeks old because he's already grown up. So the treatment is the same. The only thing that's different is it will take longer and is potentially more dangerous with an adult dog, especially if it already has a biting habit. By all means, wear Kevlar gloves, or at least padded gloves. Kevlar will stop the puncture, but the pad stops a lot of the pain. So I would wear both while you're doing this. But soon you'll notice a change in the nature of the dog as he comes up all like this and sits to get the treat. It's so unlikely, if you can say, come here, sit, and the dog promptly does it, that the dog will bite you. It really is a great indicator. It's why we do round robins in class, and a little girl goes, and Panther, come here, puppy, come, sit. And she's squeaking at the dog, but it came and it sat. That means the dog has offered its consent. It wants to come. It came of its own free will. It willingly came. And also it complied. You asked it to do something and it said, okay. And that is so important. And there's only one kind of compliance that works in this world, and that's willing compliance. The dog off leash with the option to run from you comes and sits, and you do it over and over and over. And the likelihood that that person will ever get bitten is drastically reduced. Since you already have a problem, yes, there will be some danger. So pad yourself up. Have loose, floppy clothing that dangles around your ankles so you don't get an ankle bite, and put something on your hands. But let's do something, start a program to do something about the dog now. And I never define behavior by its supposed cause, what we think is the cause. Just say the dog is biting. People, whether they're, and you don't know that he's redirecting. We know he's biting, so let's solve it by taking away any reason to want to bite you, by giving him more confidence. And it's when Jamie got on board with this all the years ago. He watched me lecture for years and luckily filmed it. So my brain is now archived on Dunbar Academy, all the seminars I've given and everything. But when he started to get involved with his art, Jamie writes books for kids. They're like cartoon books about science and all sorts of things, lots of drawings. Well, the first drawing he did for the company was, what was it? Ditch the dish. Yeah, no food bowl. How that would change the dog's behavior overnight. So many behaviors by just now measuring out the food in the morning, hand feeding it throughout the course of the day. When the dog's good, or when you know he's going to be good because you instructed him to be good, and he was. You will just have a different dog in 1 week. And we weigh it out in the morning. So if you have 4 members in the household, if there's food in this canister, they can take a handful, put it in their pocket to hand feed the dog while they're sitting on the couch, or they're playing soccer outside and the dog's lying down. So just do it. Mikey was right. Just do it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dad. Also, I should say, I didn't mention before, but today's live Q&A and the Out of Control Dog Summit in general is sponsored by Doggy Dan and The Healing Vet and, of course, Dunbar Academy. So thank you very much to our sponsors and ourselves for
thank you, Dunbar. Thank you, Dunbar Academy. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
And thank you all at home who are watching. We really appreciate the questions. We loved talking with you, and we hope you'll join us tomorrow. And thank you, Dad, for all of your excellent advice.
Thank you for reminding me. That's why I wasn't prepared for the dog. And I literally do now. It bit through the lead to my computer. Look at it. It's still attached
going to the store.
Yeah. So I hadn't got the Kong out. I would have put the dog up in my bedroom with the Kong. So even though he's going to be quiet, I was totally unprepared. So he's lying on the floor over electrical cords. I'm glad he didn't bite than the one plugged into the mains. That would have been a shocking experience, probably for me too.
Yeah.
So yeah, as Jamie says, I should practice what I preach. I've learned a little today, Jamie. Thank you.
Okay.
Everyone out there, I love it. It's really good. I wish I could see you all. It's so much more exciting when you see a massive audience. You know, I'd like it to be like on Love Actually, you know, at the opening with all those little pictures of people happy and laughing. But
All
at
right.
least I can see Jamie. That's a good sight. All right, till tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right? I've set my alarm already for Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah.
Very smart, Dad. Well
15
done.
minutes factored in to set the dog up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you,
Okay,
buddy.
thank you, everybody. We
Thank you,
will see you
Nancy.
next
Thank
time.
you, Lee. Oh, thank you, Ashley. Oh, they're all saying thank you, Jamie. I want to scroll down and see.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right. Bye.